Thank you guys for coming. I wanted to shoot the first question to Xavi. We have heard a lot about MarsBased in the last day and a half, and I was wondering how such an amazing company is dealing with very specific details on one specific process, which is hiring. How do you do that at MarsBased?
Well, our hiring strategy is an inbound hiring strategy. What we basically do is we have several sites, several platforms where we post our job offers. But then what we really do is to put a lot of effort in content creation in our website, and in our blog. What we do is to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort writing content that it's going to be useful for our candidates to know us and to build trust with them. For example, we have content explaining how do we work, what technologies do we use because we are a development agency. We also speak about all the perks that our employees will receive working at MarsBased. We also explain all the activities, the get-togethers that we do as a team, company retreats, our philosophy. That way, we are building trust with the employee, with the candidate before of the interview itself. And this is a good way for us to attract talent and to seduce the candidates. And for now, it has worked pretty well to us. We haven't had any problem finding the top talent in the areas that we do at our company.
I love that. It's kind of a pre-training. If any of you guys is looking for a job, this is a good way to actually get to know the company way beforehand they actually hire you. It's kind of cool.
Yes.
I like
I want to add that all of our employees, current employees, after speaking with them, they have said to us that they have read at least a couple or three of our posts in our blog before even applying for a job position at MarsBased, which is something that makes us very, very proud of our work.
That's awesome. And we are like entering, I don't know if you noticed, but we have a completely different sizes of companies here. And how is compared to what Mark just, Xavier just said, is how different is the managing on the hiring process? How do you do it? What is the first step on a big company like Schibsted?
So we have more defined processes in terms of hiring, but I need to mention we are not hiring remote people in Schibsted. That makes a difference.
Okay.
But we are hiring remotely, and most of the times then we bring them over, or we have diversified teams. It means that we have different people in different locations. So we have 4 international hubs, which is Barcelona, London, Oslo, and Stockholm. And different teams have different people in different locations. The ideal is that people are as close as possible, and we enable them to get together, to do off-sites, to get on and off at least monthly together. But so it's not the same as a remote setup. But it's true that we hire remotely most of the times, whenever they are too far away. And sometimes they are sitting in a different place than the same office together. So in that sense, when having an amazingly big pipeline, you need to be extremely organized with your processes. So you have like more standardized processes, and then you train as well your interviewers, so that actually all of us were following up pretty much the same methodology, and we try to get the same data points. It's what we call in Schibsted. In our interviews, we talk as well a lot about the culture that we have and how do we move together and how do we relate to each other even though we're sitting in different locations. An excellent example actually is the recruitment team, because up until now we were like 2 people in Barcelona, 2-3 people in London, 1 or 2 people in Oslo, and 1 people in Stockholm. Oh. And this is the typically diversified team where we got together talking and then agreeing on procedures so that all of us do the same thing in the different locations.
That's awesome. First time you mentioned the diversified concept, I kind of fall in love. And actually, as I've been telling you before, I've been using the term. I like it. Could you elaborate a little bit more on how those diversified teams work at the very beginning on Schibsted?
So basically, we don't want to be limited to the location of the employees. So up until now, the idea was to hire wherever it was possible that we had an office. So Schibsted was based in Oslo, and we had offices in Stockholm, so it made sense if we found the right person in the Norway and the Norwegian countries, or Sweden, or Denmark, then moving to Sweden, for instance, to be able to relocate them to those countries, unless they wanted to go to any other place. Same with London. London has a potentiality of tech people, for instance, extremely good. We didn't want to lose that opportunity of hiring amazing talent there. But said that, we have been hiring a lot in Ukraine, Russia, for instance. And in those terms, regarding visas, we have been extremely flexible where they could relocate easier or what could be interesting in working, right?
That's awesome. And this is for both of you. And one of the things when hiring people and actually engaging in a teamwork kind of thing, but with people that is in different locations or they are completely distributed all over the planet, it comes to mind what happened with the culture of the company. How do you handle, or not handle, culture is not something you handle, is how do you ensure that the whole company is aligned with the culture? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the most important thing that you can do to maintain the company culture when you're working in remote environments is leading by example. And this is what we do, what our managers at MarsBased does. This is the only way that we have found to make our employees know what are the core values of the company and apply them. And this is something that it starts with the decision-making process. The managers of MarsBased, once we need to take a decision, we have very clear the core principles of the company, and we try to make decisions based on that. I will give you an example of the early days of MarsBased. When we started the company, we used to work overtime. We used to do a lot less of vacations than we are doing now, because it's exciting, it's something new, you need to do it. But one of our core principles was that we wanted to have a good balance between work and life and family. And what we found out was that the employees at MarsBased were following what we were doing. They were doing less vacations than they should do. They were working overtime. And this is very dangerous for a remote team, because they can get demotivated, they can get burnt out, and at the end, they will leave your company. And it's very difficult to find top talent in some places like Barcelona or some areas like tech companies. So what we realized is that you not only need to have a good company culture, speech. Company culture is not something that you can write in a document and share with your employees. It is something that you need to practice. You need to practice what you preach to your employees. That way, they will respect you, and they will do the same and apply the same concepts while they are working, but also while they are communicating with your clients, which is what you really want, that everyone perceives you as the company that you are.
Awesome. Let me based on what just Shari says, let me twist the question a little bit. Aligning those values within the culture of a company, it seems fairly easy when you can actually see each other face to face. But when you have these diversified teams, how do you manage to maybe lead by example? But how do you do that? How do you do in a company that is so spread out and probably working at different time zones with different schedules and different ways or lifestyles even? What are the key features, the key traits you can put in place to ensure that the culture is the one you want?
I would say this is not a process that you put in place. I think it starts with hiring, actually. So whenever you are hiring, whenever you are evaluating the people that you are going to bring into your team, you're already assessing the kind of behaviors that you want, and if you're aligning. So both in couchsurfing, where I was working remotely for a long while and hiring remote people all over the world, actually, it was what kind of behaviors did they have, how they could align to the company, and how do you see collaborating with these people. And these people that particularly put you a lot of problems or barriers or I cannot do this, I cannot do that, and they put blockers already, you sense problem already. You need to investigate on that area. And those people who are easygoing, adapting, so there's a lot of traits that you can figure out, right? the way of communication, respect, for instance. So you are already aligning with your values, and then at the same time, you see potentiality to adopt the working culture, actually. This together with gathering together. So what I learned in couchsurfing, I apply that in Schibsted, of course, and for me it's basic when hiring to already look for the things, the traits that we need, so that we can build on top of that.
I like it. This reminds me of a couple things. We hosted Ben Horowitz in our global conferences pretty oftenly, by the way. And a couple of years ago, he was talking about cultural shift and changes inside the big, small, whatever size companies. And one of the things he mentioned is the way you make decisions is actually imprinting the culture way more than whatever perks you have. Hey, you have nice couches and you have free Wi-Fi or free lunch or whatever. Those are perks. Those are not the kind of things that are defining culture, but the way you make decisions. And that is super powerful. And let me jump into something we've been talking about. I don't know if we can disclose this, but gathering people together from time to time when you have these teams working all over the place. As much as you can disclose about your last experience with your team gathering. How was the experience? How was the overall experience? How do you perceive that? How the team actually work it out?
Okay, yes. What we do at MarsBased, because we're a fully remote team, is to have get-togethers every 2 months. Every 2 months, we bring all the team to Barcelona. We met in a co-working space, and we work on company-related projects, and we discuss what things we can improve about the company itself. And this is a good opportunity to see people face-to-face, and also to have this kind of relationship that can be missing in a remote communication, because we need to know that communicating in a remote way has its challenges, because sometimes you are lacking this verbal communication. Sometimes it is hard also to express what you are saying. People can feel alone in her workplaces, and having this kind of get-togethers helps you to have motivation boost. Also, what we do once a year also is a company retreat, which was something that it was suggested by one member of the team. It was not something that it was suggested by a manager at MarsBased. It was one member of the team that aligned with the values of the company, said, it will be very cool that every year we went to a place together and to be 1 week speaking about company-related stuff, how we can improve our company, how we can work together better, and also do some team building. For example, this last year we went to Ireland. It was an amazing experience, and it happens that maybe it happened to you also at couchsurfing. When you're working with remote people and you met in person, it's like an amazing experience, because for example, in my personal experience, when I met my employees, I hugged them. I gave them a huge hug, and this is something that it might seem crazy for you. Imagine that you go to your office tomorrow and you give a hug, yes, your boss. It's like crazy, but it is something that happens when you're always working remote and you see people face to face in person.
That's awesome. When you were at couchsurfing, how do you perceive this type of interaction? There were, I don't know, I'm not clueless, but there were some kind of gatherings or of the sort.
So when I started, it was in San Francisco. We were all living together in a house.
Okay.
Then we ended up moving remote, and we created, in a way, some sort of offices or hubs. So I remember at some point that there was one in Thailand, one in Malaysia, that's where I was, and another one in Bali. And whenever we had visa runs, we used to rotate. So we kept meeting, but during the office time, we used to have satellite international hubs. So we created one in Thailand in the mountains, or they had one in Costa Rica. And that was an opportunity for people to gather together for some months and work together in the same space. Yeah. So that was something that we did. And it was a similar experience to you, is that whenever you see the people that you're working together with, then to create some sort of like link that you didn't have probably before, and that's stronger than maybe meeting every day face to face and having a coffee, or not even
That's
in an
awesome.
office.
Maybe we are uncovering one of the unintended effects of working remotely. You cherish your personal face-to-face relationship a little bit more when you actually happen.
And you win loyalty.
Yeah.
And that's amazing as well, because people are more engaged and want to work even more with you. They participate more, and so loyalty and engagement, it's a boost, definitely.
And thanks for bringing that up. When you actually create that engagement, and that leads me to my next question is, how do you deal with performance? Because, yeah, I mean, you can be school as you can be, and all these gatherings are super good, and from the personal, emotional perspective are a boost. But how do you deal with performance with people all over the place?
I think Couchsurfing, that's how it started in the beginning with me. I remember I had a lot of meetings with Casey, and I was not grasping the concept of those meetings. So he was asking me a lot of questions regarding HR, regarding recruitment, and I remember that he was taking notes, like in very graphic way. Casey Fenton, by the way, is the founder of Couchsurfing, and he was making graphs of what I was saying, and he was asking me, I don't know, funny questions, and I didn't understand. And once we went remote, I understood the whole concept.
Yeah.
It's extremely important when going remote to have a very organized structure of deliverables, of expectations, and if and how the process are defined are going to help you express what is the objective and the outcome. So in terms of recruitment, I had very strict goals in a way. So I needed to hire one role, and for this, I was going to revise the whole pipeline to 100 people. Yeah. I would be paid probably not by time, but by issue or by CV, for instance. Out of those, I needed to define 5 people for interviews, and I would have to schedule all the interviews with 4 members of the team. And then I had a wrap-up meeting with all the interviewers and myself to decide on that person, and then out of the 5, take a conclusion on 1. And this would be extremely structured, yeah, so that there would be no confusion about if and what should be paid or not. And for a remote team, it's very important to have not necessarily that structure, but to be structured so that expectations are very well defined, and then there's no mistakes in terms of understanding.
Yeah, that's good. And let's, in the same line of thought, from the more operational point of view, how do you measure performance from a developer? I mean, how do you actually track down a developer's work that is not working side by side with you?
Well, as we're a development consultancy, it is easy to see how our employees are performing, because you have the actual work that they are producing available to you to review it anytime. This is an asynchronous process. They produce their work in form of code, they are coding, and then you can review how they are writing this code, if it's of good quality. But we are not only evaluating the code that our developers are producing. We also like to evaluate their communication skills and how do they communicate things to our clients. And this is why, for example, we make a lot of check-ins with our clients to discuss how our developers are working with them, how is the communication, if they are meeting their expectations. And this is something that it may not happen in non-remote companies. Yes, you always speak with your clients, but we are very obsessed about speaking with our clients, having their feedback to our workers, because it's the only way that we can have to really assess that the work that our workers are performing is good and is of excellent quality. And I think that this is a great advantage of working that way, because our clients at least appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, I totally get that. I don't know if you know, probably you know the company called Pivotal Labs, and this was when I met them. This was the first time I've seen people coding in the same computer, one from the coding company and the other one from the customer, and say, is that even possible? So it was that the customer was there all the time. It was present. It was checking all those points. It was double checking everything. It was actually working together with the company, developing whatever piece of software. And they say, this is the magic. This is where it happens. This control loop is the one that is actually ensuring that we can deliver. And I find out that super awesome. I think that smaller companies like MarsBased implementing this type of things is a good sign of performance, I guess. So let me jump into a more tricky part of this interview, which is training. How do you train people that are, all over the planet, and how do you engage with them in a formal way of training, so to speak? What are your thoughts on that, Laura?
Obviously, you hired skilled people already. However, it's true that you need to bring them up to the company structure and ways of working, and even train them on whatever they need. If they are remote and they cannot move to the location, then probably it would do VC sessions, for instance.
Okay.
So in Schibsted, for instance, we have been holding a lot of video conferences, and whenever people was not able to move or time-wise didn't make any sense, and or otherwise bring everybody together to a training session somewhere and then do that.
Okay.
But to be honest, in Couchsurfing, we didn't have that many issues. So we had some ad hoc video conference trainings, but it was not as if we needed to bring up to speed to one person on hiring, for instance. Everybody came from hiring already.
Okay. I'm guessing you sort of self-trained yourself to keep up the pace or something like that.
In a way.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good. How about in MarsBased? How do you deal with training?
Well, for us, this is a tough question because we're a small team and we are a distributed team. And what happens is that we cannot have a person responsible to do the whole mentoring. And this is one of the reasons why, for example, at MarsBased, we don't work with junior developers. We would like to do it because it's one great way to give back to the community, like being able to hire junior developers and train them. But we have tried in the past, and it hasn't worked. Why? Because I really believe that in order to train junior people, doing it in a remote way without having a person fully dedicated to the matter is very difficult. And this is something that we cannot do at the moment. But what we do is that as we are in a tech company and tech evolves so fast, there are lots of new technologies, new frameworks that they're appearing and that we want our employees to learn. And this is also training. What we do is to follow the same methodology that we do with work. What we do is to provide them with the right tools, for example, online courses that we know that have proven to be useful, and we give them also free time for them to work on these courses. So they are doing the training sessions in an independent way, but this is the way that we expect them to work also with the work for our clients. So it's the same as working, but working for self-training, and it has worked pretty well to us.
Once again, leading by example. I like that.
Yeah.
We're going to take the last few minutes of this first chat talking about the future, doing a little bit of foresight. Where do you see the whole labor market is heading in terms of hiring and managing remote teams? Where do you see this in 10 years? How do you see the market evolving?
I know there's a new trend, which I learned about it short ago, and I find it impressive, and it's like a next week of remote working, which is, it seems that in the US at least, and in the future, we're going to tend to work for projects and to decide the amount of days we want to work per year. So we could perfectly decide that we want to work 4 hours a day on a project for 100 days a year, for instance.
Okay.
And then you take by project. So what I'm seeing is getting compartments of projects. So the work is going to be divided in small boxes, so to say, so that you can do that in different times and different places, and just delivering. So very much delivery-based, and I wouldn't say contracting necessarily, but I think that's the tendency to work for project.
Well, that's a good wishful thinking, I guess. How many developers are in the room? You please raise your hand. No developers? I cannot believe this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there you are. There we're asleep. Well, I guess for developers it's a little bit closer, because you
Exactly.
already are by definition kind of decentralized yourself from the whole labor market.
Talking about tech, though.
Yeah, yes, of course. I mean, I cannot imagine. Well, I actually can. A doctor working remotely, that actually works. And how about you, Xavier? Where do you see this labor market going forward, moving forward?
Well, what's I have experienced in the last years is that all the technology and all the tools have evolved a lot. For example, 5 years ago, we didn't have Slack, which is a chat communication tool that we're using at our company every day. And this has eaten a lot the communication between our team. And we are seeing that there are more and more and more tools that we will be able to use to first test our candidates better and make our hiring process better. Like, for example, using techniques of machine learning based on the part of recruitment, but also in our day-to-day management, there are tools that allows you nowadays to not only share your screen, but share your code editor. So you can be coding together with another person with any friction, like if you were in the same Excel room. And this is something that is amazing. It's happening now. We are using it at MarsBased, and I can only imagine what will happen in future with the tools that we will have. It's just a matter of trying to keep on the loop and not being scared about new technologies.
I wanted to add something else, and I wanted to say 10 years ago, I was working remotely, traveling around the world for Couchsurfing, and I did that for almost 3 years. And that was thanks to technology, and I'm not a tech person, even though I was working for a tech company. So I needed a tech company with a broad mind to be able to do that. But in those 10 years, it has evolved so much that actually so many other profiles are being able to work remote at the moment.
Yeah.
So the future as well, it is being open to different areas of work and sectors, not necessarily only tech.
Awesome. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Laura. Thank you.